Chapter 1385. After receiving Lord Azura's invitation, Yi Wanwan's expression was variable, but she had her own considerations about this matter. Lord Azura invited the leaders of many factions to participate in this conference, so it didn't require much thought to wager that the Martial Arts Union knew about this matter. To the Martial Arts Union, perhaps this was the Fearless Alliance's best opportunity to launch a sneak attack on Azura. If she didn't go, whether Lord Azura would unleash hell on her or not was one thing, but she wouldn't even pass the Martial Arts Union's test. Currently, the rows of death she was establishing hadn't come into full fruition yet, and recruitment was naturally occurring in secret, so its might wasn't that apparent. Right now, it wouldn't be wise for her to offend either the Martial Arts Union or Azura. Sis Feng, if we really accept the invitation, it won't be fun this time. Those people from the Martial Arts Union will certainly order the Fearless Alliance to use this opportunity and attack, Big Dipper lightly said as he leaned closer to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan nodded slightly upon hearing that. She knew that, of course. Yi Wanwan previously planned to use this opportunity to escape from the Fearless Alliance. As long as she left, she wouldn't have to worry about all this anymore. However, after some deep contemplation, she dispelled that idea. There wouldn't be any point even if she successfully escaped from the Fearless Alliance. At that time, not only would she be hunted by the Martial Arts Union, but she would also be admitting she wasn't the true president of the Fearless Alliance and would be wanted by the Fearless Alliance. The results were too horrible to contemplate. 7-Star, what are your thoughts? Yi Wanwan asked 7-Star a moment later. The current 7-Star seemed to believe in Yi Wanwan's identity. He might have some lingering suspicions, but Yi Wanwan's performance wasn't enough to make him too cautious. Without waiting for 7-Star to respond, Big Dipper pursed his lips and looked at Yi Wanwan, interjecting, Sis Feng, why are you asking this rock? Ask me. I know everything. However, before Big Dipper could prattle on nonstop, he swallowed his words after a displeased glare from Yi Wanwan. Sis Feng. 7-Star turned to Yi Wanwan. This matter is unavoidable. There isn't a faction who can afford to offend the Martial Arts Union. Moreover, we accepted the Martial Arts Union's money and benefits, so we should act as agreed. Big Dipper retorted immediately, Bullshit, are you saying we must sneakily attack Azura? Big Dipper snorted. Don't you know the Fearless Alliance's current situation? Sis Feng doesn't control any real power. If you tell those old geezers to launch a sneak attack on Azura, see if they'll do anything. 7-Star glanced at Big Dipper but didn't seem to have any desire to respond to him and continued to say, Sis Feng, we don't need to launch a sneak attack on Azura, we merely need to clearly show the Martial Arts Union our attitude. We can accept Lord Azura's invitation this time then decline to pay tributes every month. It'd be even better if we could wreak havoc on Lord Azura's side. This way, even if we didn't immediately attack Azura, the Martial Arts Union couldn't criticize us. Yi Wanwan nodded slightly. 7-Star was thinking along the same lines as her. As long as she made a show of taking actual action, the Martial Arts Union couldn't fault her for anything. Chapter 1386. Teach. Big Dipper pursed his lips. Sis Feng, that's what I was actually thinking. I just didn't say it fast enough. Yi Wanwan turned to Big Dipper and expressionlessly said, I know you're the best. Big Dipper nodded vehemently. Sis Feng, you understand me as expected? Yi Wanwan wasn't in the mood to tease Big Dipper and sighed inwardly. The Fearless Alliance was a truly churning muddy pit. Perhaps she had to wait until her Rose of Death was strong enough to crawl out of this muddy pit. The Rose of Death's headquarters was established in a manor, and the manor was bought at half price under Old Zhang's coercion and threats as a member of the Fearless Alliance. All the recruited experts were arranged to reside within the manor. The manor's surroundings were currently desolate. The silence was soon disturbed by the arrival of a young man dressed as a Taoist devotee with an enigmatic smile on his face. Heavenly Venerate Immeasurable. Is there anyone home? The Taoist devotee shouted at the manor. Is there anyone home? Come out quickly. After calling for more than half a minute without any response, the Taoist priest's expression turned impatient. Who is it? A moment later, an elderly man in black came out from the manor. This elderly man's name was Jiang Cheng. He was a top-notch expert who was from the first batch of recruits for the Rose of Death. Heavenly venerate immeasurable. I just wanted to ask, is this the Rose of Death's headquarters? The Taoist devotee was grinning. Jiang Cheng was startled briefly, and his brows furrowed. How did you know? A friend referred me, the Taoist devotee replied. Oh. Jiang Cheng was pensive. The Rose of Death had recruited quite a few experts lately, so a referral from a friend was plausible. Little brother, it won't be that easy if you want to join the Rose of Death. We have to examine your martial arts skills to determine whether you're qualified to join the Rose of Death, Jiang Cheng said. The Taoist devotee looked thoughtful upon hearing that and nodded after a moment. It's nothing. I was just casually asking. Confirming that this place is the Rose of Death's headquarters is enough. After saying that, the Taoist devotee turned to leave. However, Jiang Cheng's face darkened abruptly. This Taoist devotee's behavior was extremely odd. There was no way he was referred by a friend. He simply came to confirm the location of the Rose of Death's headquarters. Although Jiang Cheng didn't know this Taoist devotee's intentions, he wouldn't allow him to leave until he figured it out. Bastard, you have the nerve to scout around for information on the Rose of Death? Jiang Cheng became furious and disappeared from his spot. A breath later, he appeared next to the Taoist devotee. Jiang Cheng grabbed the Taoist devotee's shoulders. Unless you explain yourself, I'm afraid you won't leave alive today. Heavenly venerate immeasurable, old mister, don't have such a fiery temper. It's bad for your health. The Taoist devotee's figure shifted minutely as he said that. Astonishment flickered through Jiang Cheng's eyes. This Taoist devotee's martial skills were unfathomable. He managed to shake Jiang Cheng off with his body alone. Jiang Cheng wanted to call for some backup, but the Taoist devotee was extremely fast and disappeared without a trace in an instant. Yun City, Nye District. Each of the 4 great clans dominated a major district of the independent state. For example, the district that the Nye family occupied was named the Nye District. These districts were named after the surnames of the 4 great clans. At the Nye residence, after Taoist devotee entered the residence, he headed straight for the main hall. Chapter 1387. 1387, Captain. Taoist devotee shouted loudly upon seeing Nameless Nye. What are you panicking about? What a disgrace. Nameless Nye glanced at Taoist devotee. No, Captain, I have something to tell you, Taoist devotee hastily said. Nonsense, I'm not done eating yet. Wait till I'm done. Nameless Nye held a plate of pot stickers with a hand and was eating them while looking at Taoist devotee with displeasure. Captain, I really have something urgent to tell you. Taoist devotee didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Spit it out. Don't hold me up from eating my pot stickers. I'll give you a minute, Nameless Nye said coldly as he carelessly tossed the plate to the side. Taoist devotee was silent for a moment before walking toward Nameless Nye and asking seriously, Captain, guess what I discovered today? Nameless Nye's brows furrowed. Guess whether I'll kill you or not. Taoist devotee rubbed his nose and chuckled awkwardly. Captain, I have news about the Rose of Death recruiting people today and found the Rose of Death's headquarters. Their headquarters is in Yun City. Nameless Nye was taken back. Rose of Death? What's going on? Where the hell did this Rose of Death come from? Captain, it goes without saying that they must be fakes. Lately, we've decreased our efforts in exposing fakes, so some reckless idiots started inciting trouble again and are pretending to be the Rose of Death, Taoist devotee explained. Nameless Nye's expression chilled completely, and his face was so dark that ink could drip from it. A few years ago, countless groups pretended to be Rose of Death, but those groups were all uprooted by Nameless Nye. A long time ago, Nameless Nye announced that the Rose of Death didn't exist and everything was fabricated. Moreover, he didn't permit anyone or any group to pretend to be the Rose of Death. Otherwise, he would kill any violators without mercy. Barely any time had passed since then. Yet, now there was someone in Yun City of the independent state who dared to ignore his authority and pretend to be the Rose of Death under his very nose. This was a blatant infringement on his copyright. Where? Nameless Nye asked Taoist devotee coldly. Taoist devotee smiled enigmatically and pulled out his phone, opening his photos before placing them in front of nameless Nya. His fingers kept flipping through the photos as he said, "Captain, look, I took photos of the Rose of Death's headquarters." Nameless Nya looked at Taoist devotee's photos pensively and asked with confusion, "Why are you showing these to me?" He was going to have Taoist devotee lead the way to the headquarters of that fake Rose of Death, but why did Taoist devotee show him these photos? "Captain, look, I've taken photos of this place so you can go by yourself." "I still have something to do," Taoist devotee replied seriously. Nameless Nya nodded but didn't say anything and grabbed Taoist devotee by his ear before dragging him out of the door. At the same time, the Rose of Death's headquarters, Yi Wanwan sat in the chief's seat and swept her eyes over the people below her. Many of the newly recruited experts looked at Yi Wanwan with astonishment and disbelief on their faces. The legendary, terrifying and bloodthirsty leader of the Rose of Death, Black Widow, was actually so young and beautiful. Several young men who thought they had good looks instantly straightened up. Rumors said the Black Widow was keen on beautiful men. Chapter 1388. Soon, several dozens of men and women wearing long, rose-red robes and silver fox masks slowly walked toward Yi Wanwan and bowed to her. These people wearing silver fox masks were personally selected by Yi Wanwan and were currently the strongest members of the Rose of Death. Everyone looked at Yi Wanwan silently. This was the new recruits' first time seeing the legendary Black Widow, so they didn't dare to say anything. Yi Wanwan was about to say something when the elderly man, Jiang Cheng, suddenly came forward and said, "Boss?" "An incident happened. Speak," Yi Wanwan ordered coldly. Jiang Cheng didn't dare to conceal anything and cautiously said, "A young man came earlier. He heard about the Rose of Death's recent actions from somewhere, found this place, and confirmed this was the Rose of Death's headquarters." As Jiang Cheng said this, old Jiang, little Lolita, and the others all became alarmed upon hearing that. "Someone found the Rose of Death's headquarters? What's their purpose? You didn't seize that person?" Little Lolita asked Jiang Cheng with a frown. Jiang Cheng shook his head, his expression serious. "I wanted to seize him, but that young man was too strong. I'm very ashamed, but I was no match for him." "No match for him?" Shock grew on the faces of old Jiang, little Lolita, and the others. All of the Rose of Death's recruited members were elite experts, and none of them were freeloaders. Jiang Cheng especially could be considered a top-notch expert of the Rose of Death, so how could it be possible that Jiang Cheng was no match for this stranger? Yi Wanwan's expression remained the same, but she was inwardly pensive. Who was scouting for information about the Rose of Death and why? Could it be the Martial Arts Union? Or perhaps Azura? However, after carefully thinking about it, whether it was the Martial Arts Union or Azura, they both wouldn't have needed to do this. If it wasn't those two factions, who else could it be? Before Yi Wanwan could think further, the sound of an intense impact was heard from the distance. A few seconds later, an elderly man scampered into the living room with a panicked expression and hastily kneeled in front of Yi Wanwan. "Boss, someone from the Nye family is here." "The Nye family?" Yi Wanwan shot up with a deep frown. "Which Nye family?" Yi Wanwan asked. "It's the Nye family that's one of the 4 great clans of the independent state." The elderly man was ghastly pale. The newcomer was too terrifyingly powerful. Even dozens of brothers couldn't ward him off. So what if it's the Nye family?" Jiang Cheng's face turned cold. Even if it was the Nye family, they couldn't act insolently in front of Black Widow. Heavenly venerate immeasurable pretending to be the Rose of Death. Everyone is quite gutsy. However, did you think about the consequences? Taoist devotee's voice traveled into the room. Yi Wanwan couldn't help but start upon hearing that voice. For some reason, she found this voice very familiar sounding. When Taoist devotee finished saying that, nameless Nye and Taoist devotee slowly entered the hall. "You're calling us pretenders?" The dozens of silver fox masked experts surrounded nameless Nye and Taoist devotee instantly. "Of course you're pretenders. The Rose of Death doesn't exist in this world. It was merely fabricated by our Nye family. Everyone, Nameless Nye announced a long time ago that he prohibited anyone from swindling people using the Rose of Death's name. You don't seem to want to live. Taoist devotee snorted. Chapter 1389. What? Pretenders? Everyone looked at each other bewildered when they heard Taoist devotee's words. They also heard that the Rose of Death didn't exist, but they didn't take it seriously back then and merely treated it as a joke. In truth, after joining the Rose of Death, the majority of the experts present were somewhat suspicious, but they didn't dare to make open inquiries to get to the bottom of it. Until an expert from one of the 4 great clans, the Nye family, came to challenge this place and personally declared that the Rose of Death didn't exist. Could it be, the Rose of Death really doesn't exist and we've been deceived? A man wearing a silver fox mask murmured. Think about it carefully. Although the Rose of Death is extremely famous, it's all just rumors. None of us has ever seen the Rose of Death in action. Plus, why would the Rose of Death's leader, Black Widow, be so young? Jiang Cheng's brows locked together. However, the Rose of Death clearly existed. He once had the honor of meeting some of her brothers in the 6th-level prison. What's going on here? Unless are really pretenders. A fairly good-looking woman turned to Taoist devotee with misgivings. Of course. How could the Rose of Death exist in this world? You pitiful fellows have been deceived. Taoist devotee snorted. Yi Wanwan felt somewhat guilty. Her vision was blocked by everyone, so she couldn't see the newcomers and the current situation clearly. However, the Rose of Death's copyright wasn't theirs, so what business was it of theirs? Why did they come here to expose her? Upon seeing the situation spiraling out of control, Yi Wanwan had no choice but to straighten her back and coldly shout, "Who's acting insolent here?" Taoist devotee and Nameless Nye were taken back. Does this voice sound so familiar? After Yi Wanwan spoke, the people crowded in front of her swiftly receded to the 2 sides. When Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee saw her, they were astonished. Even Yi Wanwan froze on the spot. Say, doesn't this woman look a bit similar to Boss Famous? Nameless Nye rubbed his chin and asked Taoist devotee. Taoist devotee's lips twitched slightly. Is my captain blind? Captain. Taoist devotee turned to Nameless Nye. She isn't just similar. They look like identical twins. They're extremely similar looking. After saying that, Taoist devotee stared at Yi Wanwan and clicked his tongue. So you're the woman pretending to be Black Widow from the Rose of Death. You look very similar to a friend of ours in China. When Yi Wanwan saw Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee, she was somewhat excited at first, but her face turned dark the second she heard Taoist devotee. Is there something wrong with these 2 people's heads? They can't even recognize me face to face? It's only been a few months. Girl, you're rather gutsy. You dare to pretend to be the Rose of Death. Tell me who gave you the guts? Taoist devotee snorted and questioned her. Some distance away, little Lolita, old Jiang, and the rest of their group watched this scene with a flabbergasted expression. Aren't these 2 people the experts who saved us back in Myanmar? Why did they come here to cause trouble suddenly and claim we're pretending to be the Rose of Death? Chapter 1390. Yi Wanwan slowly stood up from the chief seat and glanced at Nameless Nye, then Taoist devotee. She snorted and said, You too, your wings hardened after returning to the independent state? Should I turn you into clipped-winged angels? All the experts became more uncertain upon hearing that. They started to believe they were conned and deceived, but how could Yi Wanwan dare to challenge 2 people from the Nye family if she wasn't Black Widow? You. Taoist devotee had an odd expression as he stared at Yi Wanwan, as though he wanted to say something. Who are you? Nameless Nye asked coldly. Yi Wanwan glanced at the bewildered Nameless Nye, her lips twitching slightly. Nameless Nye, you're rather impressive now. You're different from back when you kept pleading me to help you look after Tang Tang again and again. All the experts looked at each other blankly, becoming more dazed. What kind of code language are they using? Shit. That's impossible, right? Taoist devotee's expression shifted. There are thousands of miles between the independent state and China. It's impossible. Moreover, you couldn't have come to the independent state without a permit. What's going on? Nameless Nye looked at Taoist devotee, flabbergasted. What are you saying? Who, in the world, is this woman? What does looking after Tang Tang mean? Before Taoist devotee could reply though, Nameless Nye became shocked and exclaimed, Shit! That's impossible, right? Boss famous? That's right, Captain. No wonder they look like identical twins. They were the same person to begin with. Taoist devotee nodded several times. You idiot, you can't even recognize Boss famous? You're saying they're twins? Are you brainless? Are you blind? Nameless Nye shouted at Taoist devotee. Taoist devotee looked at his captain incredulously. He would admit it if someone else said that to him, but his captain? Where did he get the face to say that to me? Didn't he not recognize her himself? He merely said they looked similar. At least I said they were twins, which is closer to the truth. You too follow me. Yi Wanwan looked at Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee before turning and entering the inner hall. Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee glanced at each other and ended up following Yi Wanwan into the inner hall, leaving behind a group of baffled people. In the inner hall, Nameless Nye looked at Yi Wanwan, full of astonishment. He asked excitedly, Sister Famous Yi, it's really you? Why did you come to the independent state? Could it be you came to visit us? Wait, how did you come to the independent state? Do you have a permit? Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes at Nameless Nye's prattling and string of questions. Is that the key point? I came to find someone. Didn't I tell you? I originally wanted to come with you to the independent state. But my calls didn't go through, and you didn't respond to my messages, Yi Wanwan explained. Nameless Nye nodded and explained pensively, phones aren't allowed to be turned on in airplanes. After arriving in the independent state, we couldn't use our previous SIM cards and phones anymore, so we threw them away. But Sister Famous Yi, aren't you too gutsy? You dared to trespass in the independent state. You don't have a permit, right? I don't, Yi Wanwan shook her head honestly. Sister Famous Yi, you seriously aren't afraid of death. The independent state has always rejected outsiders, and outsiders typically don't turn out well after entering the independent state, Nameless Nye said. Chapter 1391. Nameless Nye's brows furrowed slightly. He came there due to the rose of death today. His expression chilled instantly, and he looked at Yi Wanwan. Sister Famous Yi, did you know anyone who pretends to be the rose of death will turn into bones and ashes? All right, call Iceberg Man, little sweetie, and spray of flowers here. Yi Wanwan nodded calmly. Call them for what? Taoist devotee didn't understand. Of course we're calling them. It's most important for a family to be together. The 6 of us can go to Yellow Springs one hand in hand. Yi Wanwan chuckled. Go to Yellow Springs? Nameless Nye looked at Yi Wanwan, baffled. What do you mean? Didn't you just say anyone who pretends to be members of the Rose of Death had to die? Yi Wanwan asked. That's right. Nameless Nye nodded. Exactly. Yi Wanwan snorted. You haven't forgotten how I hired you to be my bodyguards back in Myanmar, right? Of course we haven't forgotten. We had several hot pot meals in China with the money we earned that time. So satisfying. Taoist devotee nodded vehemently. So the 6 of us pretended to be the Rose of Death together? You didn't forget about this, right? Since anyone who pretends to be the Rose of Death has to die, that's perfect. The 6 of us can die together, whole and intact. Yi Wanwan looked at Nameless Nye. Nameless Nye, Taoist devotee. Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee met each other's eyes. They really had pretended to be the Rose of Death with Yi Wanwan. How could this BL*OD bastard be so cunning? She tricked all of us. If the patriarch of the Nye family comes back and learns about this, I'll be in for a round of damn scolding again. When Yi Wanwan saw Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee becoming embarrassed, her eyes shifted and she threw her arm around Nameless Nye and pressed him into a chair. She grinned and said, Let's forget about the past. I have business for you. What business? Taoist devotee leaned in immediately. Look, you were the ones who created the Rose of Death. So it's your copyright. That's a major IP, but it's useless in your hands. How pitiful and wasteful, am I right? Yi Wanwan asked cheerfully. IP. Nameless Nye looked confused. What's an IP? IP is intellectual property. You've seen movies and novels, right? That's intellectual property and copyright. The Rose of Death is intellectual property created by you, so how about you sell the Rose of Death to me and I'll manage the Rose of Death's copyright? Yi Wanwan tried to persuade them emotionally. Nameless Nye finally understood after Yi Wanwan's explanation. He immediately shook his head and said, "No. I won't sell it." "You won't sell it? Are you a pig?" Yi Wanwan sounded disappointed, like she expected better from him. "What use is the Rose of Death in your hands? It isn't worth a penny. But do you know how valuable it would be if you transferred it to me? This thing can earn money." Nameless Nye looked doubtful. "Rubbish. Of course it can earn money." Yi Wanwan chuckled and said, "After you transfer the Rose of Death to me, I'll be the Rose of Death's leader, Black Widow, from now on. After I become stronger and propagate the Rose of Death, I'll demand tributes. Isn't that money? Later on, I'll suggest we build a Rose of Death theme park or playground. Aren't tickets money? After that, I'll produce a blockbuster movie on the Rose of Death, then an anime, then merchandise, and so on. Do you understand what a large sum of money that is?" Chapter 1392. Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee were utterly dumbfounded after listening to Yi Wanwan. These kinds of maneuvers existed. "I won't buy you out. I'll give you a percentage and allow you to buy a share. At that time, wealth will roll in endlessly. The Shin family's supposed wealth that can beat a country's? It will all be pushed to the side. At that time, you'll be richer than the Shin family." Yi Wanwan cajoled. "Captain, we're gonna be rich." Taoist devotee was mystified by the explanation, but he was brimming with excitement. The Shin family squeezed into the four great clans simply by relying on their profound wealth. If they were richer than the Shin family. "Shut up." Nameless Nye harshly glared at Taoist devotee before turning to Yi Wanwan, an ingratiating smile spreading on his face. "Boss famous? Say about this buyout fee and the division of the shares. I definitely won't treat you unfairly with our relationship. I never cheat familiar people. We'll divide it 20% and 80%, Yi Wanwan said. Nameless Nye became joyful, but before he could say anything, Yi Wanwan added, "I'll take 80% and you'll take 20%. "I'll take 20%? Nameless Nye was taken back. "That's right, you'll take 20%. Yi Wanwan nodded with conviction. "Captain, we only have 20%. Taoist devotee didn't look too satisfied. However, Nameless Nye thought about it for a moment and finally nodded. "As long as it earns money, I'll take 20%. This method of earning money is legal, right?" "Of course it's legal. It's even international. After the Rose of Death becomes a truly major piece of intellectual property, the whole world will know you, Nameless Nye, are the author." Yi Wanwan bobbed her head. Before Nameless Nye could reply, Yi Wanwan took out 5 $100 bills from her pocket and placed them in Nameless Nye's hand. "This will be the transfer fee. Take it." "Only $500. Nameless Nye was discontent. "After we start earning money, you won't care about this tiny sum. Cast your sights farther onto the horizon." "Believe me, I'm right," Yi Wanwan advised him meaningfully. "Captain, Boss Famous is a famous manager in China and produced several best actors and best actresses. Her credibility is extremely high." Taoist devotee said. In the end, under Yi Wanwan's coercion, the Rose of Death's copyright ended up in her hands. From now on, her Rose of Death was real and effective. She would no longer be pretending. A moment later, Yi Wanwan, Nameless Nye, and Taoist devotee appeared in front of everyone again. Nameless Nye wore a solemn expression. "Allow me to explain, it's like this, we were mistaken earlier. You're not pretenders. It's all this trash's fault for confusing me." Taoist devotee was rendered speechless instantly. Captain's seriously capable at turning his back on someone? "Apologize to Widow already," Nameless Nye said. Taoist devotee looked at Yi Wanwan and smiled apologetically. "Widow, it's my fault. I'm very sorry. I definitely won't jump to conclusions next time. I've disturbed you today. You're the freaking widow. Your whole family is widows. Forget it, Clueless people are innocent. Today's events were a mere misunderstanding. Everyone shouldn't take it seriously, Yi Wanwan said calmly. The suspicious experts earlier were cleared of all doubts. Since the Nye family said that, their boss was definitely Black Widow for sure. If you're too rash, I hope you'll look before you leap next time. Jiang Cheng's face was dark with displeasure. I remember. Next time, I'll definitely look before I leap and won't cause trouble for no reason. Taoist devotees sounded a bit aggrieved. Yi Wanwan said, since this matter is settled, I'll see the two of you out. After leaving some instructions to old Jiang and little Lolita, Yi Wanwan led Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee out of the manor. Halfway through, Yi Wanwan looked at Nameless Nye and asked hesitantly, is Tang Tang doing well, at home? Chapter 1393. 1393. When Nameless Nye heard that, he was taken back. Why did she suddenly mention Little Devil for no reason? He's not too different from before. After a moment of contemplation, he added, that Little Devil isn't close with his real mom after coming back and he runs around the house lawlessly. No one can control him. He's bad to the bone. Yi Wanwan couldn't help but glance at Nameless Nye. How's baby Tang Tang bad? I didn't know that. Children are like that. He'll get better after he familiarizes himself with his mother, Taoist devotee interjected with a chuckle as he leaned in. Who knows whether she's his real mom? Nameless Nye snorted. That sister of his wasn't pleasing to the eyes no matter how he looked at her. Hey, Sister Famous Yi, since you happen to be here, how about you pay a visit to my house? Nameless Nye suggested to Yi Wanwan. Where's your house? Yi Wanwan asked. The Nye district. You should have heard of the Nye family after coming to the independent state, right? Nameless Nye said. The Nye family. Yi Wanwan surveyed Nameless Nye. You're really a member of the Nye family, one of the 4 great clans in the independent state? That's exactly it. Boss Famous, our captain is the eldest young master of the Nye family. Taoist devotee said. The eldest young master of the Nye family. Yi Wanwan stared at Nameless Nye with astonishment and disbelief. As one of the 4 great clans in the independent state, the Nye family was overwhelmingly powerful and immensely frightening. Yet, Nameless Nye was actually the eldest young master of the Nye family. However, he didn't look like it no matter how she examined him. How could he be impoverished to this extent as the eldest young master of the Nye family? Sister Famous Yi, since you're here, how about you live at the Nye residence for now? It'd be safer for you to stay with the Nye family as someone without a permit, Nameless Nye said with a grin. Yi Wanwan sank into contemplation. Although she missed Tang Tang, it wouldn't be advantageous for her to go to the Nye residence right now. In 3 days, she had to attend Azura's conference since she accepted Lord Azura's invitation, so there was a time conflict. Additionally, based on her experience in China, the madam of the Nye family and Tong Tong's biological mother didn't seem to welcome her. I still have some business to handle. Since I'm here in the independent state, I'll definitely visit the Nye residence, but it's not urgent, Yi Wanwan replied. Captain, let's not distract Boss Famous from earning money. Boss Famous just obtained the Rose of Death's copyright, so she must have a pile of things to do. Isn't preventing Boss Famous from earning money the same as preventing ourselves from earning money? Taoist devotee said to Nameless Nye. Nameless Nye nodded. He fully agreed with Taoist devotee. Oh right, did you find the person I had you guys help me look for last time? Yi Wanwan suddenly recalled how she requested them to search for Si Yihan when they left China. However, Yi Wanwan wasn't too hopeful since Nameless Nye's group was so unreliable. We, of course, prioritize the things that Sister Famous Yi tells us. Nameless Nye looked at Yi Wanwan enigmatically before looking around and secretly saying, Sister Famous Yi, I had to use quite a few bribes to look for this information. Say, Yi Wanwan's lips twitched when she saw Nameless Nye extending his hand toward her. Is money the only important thing in this guy's eyes? He's the eldest young master of the Nye family, one of the independent state's 4 great clans. What an utter disgrace to the Nye family. Yi Wanwan glanced at Nameless Nye darkly before taking out $100 bill and handing it to him. Chapter 1394. Nameless Nya accepted the money and chuckled playfully. After I came back, I looked into it, and there's a recluse ancient clan named the Sea Clan in the independent state. Within the Sea Clan, there's someone named Si Yihan. He's a new star in the Sea Clan, but he's very mysterious and rarely reveals himself. Yi Wanwan was surprised by Nameless Nye's news. She naturally knew about the recluse ancient clans in the independent state and that one of the extremely powerful ancient clans was the Sea Clan. However, how could Si Yihan be related to the independent state's Sea Clan? The Sea Clan was such a behemoth in power. Although Si Yihan's surname was Si, it was because he was from China's Si family. Could the Si family in China be related to the Sea Clan in the independent state? Sister Famous Yi, don't bother. I don't think it's possible. Nameless Nya chuckled lightly. The person you want to find is the patriarch of China's Si family. The surname might be the same, but there's plenty of people surnamed Si. You can't link them together simply because they have the same surname, right? Taoist devotee turned to Nameless Nya. Captain, this isn't just the same surname, even their names are the same. Nameless Nya glanced at him with displeasure. Which of us is the captain? Captain, Boss Famous, I've had some dealings with the Sea Clan before, so I know a little about them. How about I tell you a little about the Sea Clan? Taoist devotee asked. Sure. Yi Wanwan nodded. In truth, starting several centuries ago, the sons born in the Sea Clan undergo professional testing after they reach a certain age. These tests include intelligence, physical, virtue, etc. If there's even one area that fails, the Sea Clan sends the son out of the independent state, and those children who are sent away will be protected by designated people. After they reach adulthood, they're allowed to develop as they wish on the outside, Taoist devotee explained slowly. Nameless Nya pursed his lips. How's this related to the person Sister Famous Ye's looking for? Of course it's related. Taoist devotee smiled slightly, looking like a profound immortal. After those sons who are sent away have children with their partner and their children reach a certain age, the Sea Clan will send people to bring the children back to the independent state to be tested again. If the children pass the tests, they will stay behind. If the children don't meet the standard, they will be sent back. Hence, Captain, Boss Famous, do you think Si Yihan's father was a child who didn't pass the Sea Clan's tests and was sent away? Later, his father had Si Yihan and Si Yihan was brought back to the Sea Clan in the independent state to undergo testing. He ended up passing the test and staying in the Sea Clan. It isn't impossible. Yi Wanwan was pensive after listening to Taoist devotee's explanation. If it was Si Yihan, he would definitely be retained in the Sea Clan with his capabilities. But then Taoist devotee's hypothesis had to be true and Si Yihan's father was a descendant of the Sea Clan who didn't pass the tests and was sent away. How do you know so much? You aren't part of the Sea Clan. Nameless Nya stared at Taoist devotee. Captain, I'm not from the Sea Clan, but I'm from the Jiang clan. Back then, my father was sent to China and created the Jiang family in China. Later, I was brought back to the independent state by people from the Jiang clan. Taoist devotee sighed. Whether it's the Jiang clan or the Sea Clan, they're cut from the same cloth. Yi Wanwan looked at Taoist devotee with surprise. She never expected him to be a descendant of the Jiang clan. Chapter 1395. The Jiang clan was one of the major recluse ancient clans, its prestige matching that of the Sea Clan. If that's true, then Si Yihan might really be a member of the Sea Clan. Yi Wanwan looked conflicted. If that's true, then it'd be tragic. Nameless Nya guffawed. Tragic? Yi Wanwan was startled. Why? Sister Famous Yi, there's a person called Piece of Shit in the independent state. Taoist devotee looked at Yi Wanwan and mysteriously said, Piece of Shit once declared he'd eradicate all of the ancient clans in the independent state. Yi Wanwan looked pensive at the mention of Piece of Shit. Why? How should I know? Anyway, Piece of Shit only attacks those ancient clans and never attacks any other factions. Even if you provoke him, he'll merely teach you a lesson at most. But ancient clans are different. Even if they don't provoke him, he'll try to kill them, Taoist devotee explained. Those ancient clans were the descendants of the extraordinary person who created the independent state back then. No one knew how many ancient clans there were, but piece of shit dared to take on all the ancient clans by himself? Yi Wanwan knew piece of shit was very strong, but she didn't know piece of shit was strong to that extent. Piece of shit? Is he really that strong? Yi Wanwan murmured with a frown. Boss famous. You don't know, but there were two people who were called the most underestimated people in the independent state back then. One of them was piece of shit. Taoist devotees smiled faintly. Who's the second one? Yi Wanwan asked curiously. The second one was the boss of Azura, Lord Azura, Taoist devotee answered. Yi Wanwan, I feel like dying. Lord Azura is on par with piece of shit. Shit, doesn't the martial arts union obviously want me to die by telling me to attack Lord Azura? Actually, those aren't the only two people who are underestimated. Nameless Nye snorted. There are 3 people in total. The third person is me, Nameless Nye. Devotee, Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan shook her head in exasperation at Nameless Nye's serious expression. It was truly a pity that Nameless Nye didn't do stand-up comedy. Who's stronger between Lord Azura and piece of shit? Yi Wanwan asked Taoist devotee. That depends on the area you're asking about. Martial arts-wise, piece of shit probably doesn't have a match in the world. If we're talking overall, Lord Azura is probably stronger than piece of shit. Taoist devotee looked at Yi Wanwan. However, I heard fellow Jiang clansmen say that piece of shit is Lord Azura's older brother. Of course, I don't know whether it's true or not. Yi Wanwan was skeptical when she heard that. Lord Azura and piece of shit weren't related in the slightest. A few days ago, Yi Wanwan asked piece of shit about Lord Azura, and he wasn't familiar with Lord Azura at all. He had only heard of him before, so how could they be brothers? Oh right, Sister Famous Yi, why are you asking this? Nameless Nye looked confused. Isn't she looking for Si Yihan? Why did she bring up piece of shit and Lord Azura? Yi Wanwan sized Nameless Nye up and down, her eyes shifting. She threw her arm around Nameless Nye's shoulders and chuckled lightly. Brother Nameless, I need your help with something. What? Nameless Nye shuddered. He wasn't used to Yi Wanwan calling him brother. Chapter 1396, In Truth. It's like this, Yi Wanwan laughed mischievously at Nameless Nye. Are you free in 3 days? Help me take care of Lord Azura. Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee were both taken back. Take care of Lord Azura? What was going on? Yi Wanwan had no choice but to tell Nameless Nye the whole story. Yi Wanwan had never been on guard against Nameless Nye and his group, nor did she need to be on guard. These people were her closest friends and brothers. After coming to the independent state, Yi Wanwan also considered Nameless Nye family. After learning about everything that Yi Wanwan had done since she came to the independent state, Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee were rendered speechless. This was too freaking insane. They even recognized their president incorrectly? Did the entire Fearless Alliance turn into idiots? Taoist devotee was incredulous. They must have an ulterior motive. Sister Famous Yi, I advise you to leave the independent state as soon as possible and don't get mixed up into this mud pit, Nameless Nye cautioned her earnestly. Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes at Nameless Nye. She'd like to extract herself from this pit, but she kept sinking deeper, so how was it that easy to leave? Boss Famous. Azura and our Nye family has some business transactions and we don't have any animosities. If we help you deal with Azura, we'd be acting on behalf of the entire Nye family in the independent state, so that'd be inappropriate. Nameless Nye shook his head. It wasn't that he was unwilling to help Yi Wanwan, he couldn't help her. Azura had never provoked the Nye family, but if the Nye family suddenly went up and slapped Azura for no reason, that wouldn't be appropriate. Yi Wanwan wanted to cry. She'd like to go to the Nye residence and hug her baby Tangting. She didn't want to be some president of the Fearless Alliance anymore. Nonetheless, Yi Wanwan could understand Nameless Nye not helping her since he did represent the entire Nye family, not just himself. It was just wishful thinking. How about this? I'll visit the Nye residence and see Tangtang in 3 days after attending Azura's conference. Yi Wanwan said happily. No problem, Sister Famous Yi. The Nye family will always welcome you. Nameless Nye grinned. Thank you, Yi Wanwan nodded. Before Yi Wanwan could say anything else, Nameless Nye added, although I can't help you, I can get a mercenary team under me to help you. Mercenary team? Yi Wanwan started. That's right. This mercenary team. Forget it, you'll find out later, Nameless Nye said. Although Yi Wanwan was curious about this mercenary team, she didn't think too much about it. After chatting a little longer with Nameless Nye and Taoist devotee, Yi Wanwan got up and left to prepare for Azura's conference in 3 days. During these 3 days, Yi Wanwan was mostly busy with business related to the Rose of Death. She also discussed the details of their plan to cause trouble at the conference with Big Dipper and 7 Star. 3 days later, Yi Wanwan was sitting inside her office in the Fearless Alliance. One hand was scratching Virus while the other hand petted Great White. She thought, if it doesn't work out, I can bring Great White and Virus there to shake up the room. There were only a few hours until Azura's conference. At that moment, a knock was suddenly heard from the office doors. Enter, Yi Wanwan called out. A second later, 3 men entered Yi Wanwan's sight. One of the men wore a pair of gold-framed glasses and a Chinese tunic suit, his face sickly pale. The second man had long hair and extraordinary looks, while the third person was a bit special. He was actually a child around 11 or 12 years old, but intelligence and sharpness were clear in this child's eyes. Greetings, Sis Feng. The 3 people simultaneously said after they got close to Yi Wanwan. Chapter 1397. 1397. In her office at the Fearless Alliance's headquarters, Yi Wanwan sat in her chair and examined the 3 people before her with a confused expression. Based on these people's outfits, they were members of the Fearless Alliance. Also, what was up with this child? Yi Wanwan wasn't in a hurry to speak and waited for their explanation. The long, curly-haired man came up and flung his hair back, a mesmerizing smile spreading across his face. Sis Feng, excuse us for the disturbance. We're the Star Destroyer mercenary team. The Star Destroyer mercenary team, Yi Wanwan looked surprised. After coming to the independent state, Yi Wanwan gained an overall understanding of the mercenary groups in the independent state. The Star Destroyer mercenary team was considered a legendary mercenary team in the independent state, even in all of Europe. Rumors said the Star Destroyer mercenary team had never failed any mission that they accepted. Their success rate was 100%. You're the mercenary team under Nameless Nye? Yi Wanwan looked pensive. That's right. Our Star Destroyer mercenary team is a T2 mercenary group under Lord Nye. The curly-haired man answered with a nod. A T2 mercenary group meant they were second-tier mercenaries amongst all the mercenaries under Nameless Nye. They weren't top-tier yet. The Star Destroyer mercenary team not only belonged to Nameless Nye but was only a second-tier mercenary group in Nameless Nye's hands. Wasn't this a bit over the top? Yi Wanwan looked mystified. Could it be that she truly underestimated Nameless Nye? Sis Feng, Lord Nye told us to assist you this time, the curly-haired man continued to say with a smile. The curly-haired man added, if you're certain about hiring us, please give us the down payment first. Otherwise, it'll put us in a difficult place when Lord Nye asks us for money. Yi Wanwan's face darkened immediately. Nameless Nye seriously only thought about money. Lord Nye also said you could give us an IOU if you don't have spare money right now, Sis Feng, the curly-haired man said. Yi Wanwan nodded and wrote an IOU in front of the 3 people. What's up with this child? Is he also part of the Star Destroyer mercenary team? Yi Wanwan examined the 11 or 12-year-old youth in front of her with a strange expression. The youth had an innocent and harmless face and wore a cute casual outfit and a child's cap. He looked rather adorable and didn't look like a mercenary no matter what. The man in a Chinese tunic suit pushed his gold-framed glasses up with his pointer finger and explained aloofly, his name is Fu Xingwan. He's not a child. He just has a health issue and can't grow older. Yi Wanwan was pensive. She had never heard about this type of situation in China where an adult in his 20s or 30s looked like a child. This was her first time meeting someone like this. Very well. Yi Wanwan nodded and happily said, "Nameless Nye must have told everyone, right? Do you have the guts to cause trouble at Azura's conference?" The curly-haired man walked closer to Yi Wanwan and confidently smiled. "Sis Feng, we're a mercenary team. There's nothing that a mercenary doesn't dare to do to a person or a power, let alone Azura. About this compensation though," the curly-haired man looked at the number on the debt certificate and sighed helplessly. This woman's compensation seriously wasn't much. Chapter 1398. After a discussion with the Star Destroyer mercenary team, Yi Wanwan had them leave first to start preparing while she also left and drove toward her house. After about half an hour, Yi Wanwan parked in front of Yi Shuihan's house. Yi Wanwan looked at the extra thick door in front of her and knocked. Absolute silence greeted her. Knight-errant Yi. Yi Wanwan didn't give up and knocked again. After knocking several minutes, the door opened from the inside with a creak. Yi Shuihan stood in the doorway sleepily wearing SpongeBob pajamas, his eyes somewhat red as though his dreams were disturbed. "Speak." Viciousness surfaced in Yi Shuihan's eyes. "Knight-errant, I came to perform after-sales service and check to see if your door had any problems," Yi Wanwan said with a smile. Yi Shuihan pondered over it for a few seconds before shifting to the side and allowing Yi Wanwan to enter the house. Yi Wanwan relaxed and entered. She made a show of examining the newly installed door. "The quality is decent, but it's too expensive," Yi Shuihan said to Yi Wanwan. "Expensive?" Yi Wanwan was startled. She didn't tell Big Dipper to take money from Yi Shuihan, so why did "it's too expensive" mean? "Knight-errant Yi paid?" Yi Wanwan asked. Yi Shuihan glanced at Yi Wanwan. "Your installation worker said the door was an exclusively made limited edition that's worth $200,000. He asked me for $100,000. Yi Wanwan froze in her spot, dumbfounded. This door was directly purchased at a store and only cost a few $1,000s. Yet, Big Dipper turned around and asked Yi Shuihan for $100,000. Most importantly, Big Dipper never mentioned this payment to her. "Knight-errant Yi, you gave the money?" Yi Wanwan smiled in embarrassment. "I'm not a bandit." Yi Shuihan dryly glanced at Yi Wanwan and turned to walk into the house. "It appears he did give it." Yi Wanwan wished nothing more than to immediately return to the Fearless Alliance and skin Big Dipper. He was too crafty. A moment later, Yi Wanwan entered the living room and found Yi Shuihan lying on the sofa with a black eye mask over his eyes. "Knight-errant, I heard something, but I don't know whether to tell you. If I say it, I feel like it'd be disrespectful to you. If I don't say it, I'd feel like I'm a bad friend." Yi Wanwan looked conflicted. Yi Shuihan said lightly, "Speak your mind." "Knight-errant, are you and Lord Azura brothers?" Yi Wanwan asked, thirsting for gossip. "I don't have any brothers," Yi Shuihan answered aloofly. Yi Wanwan relaxed upon hearing that. Someone like Yi Shuihan would rarely lie. If he said they weren't brothers, then they definitely weren't brothers. Yi Wanwan actually came there in hopes of obtaining Yi Shuihan's assistance. If Yi Shuihan could help her handle Lord Azura, all would be well with the world. "Ahem, then I'll speak frankly. I recently heard that Lord Azura was very disrespectful to you, Knight-errant. He said something about how the strongest person in the independent state was him, Lord Azura, not some Yi Shuihan," Yi Wanwan said, acting as if it was true. However, Yi Shuihan lay unmoving on the sofa, seemingly uncaring about Yi Wanwan's words. Chapter 1399. Also, Lord Azura said you weren't a match for him in both literature and martial arts. He said you were at the same level as the president of the Fearless Alliance at most, Knight-errant Yi. Upon seeing a lack of reaction from Yi Shuihan, Yi Wanwan continued to spice up the tale. "Lord Azura also said you better not run into him in the independent state. Otherwise, he'd make you regret being born." Yi Wanwan rambled on for half a day, but Yi Shuihan still remained unaffected and ignored her, as though she was talking about someone else. She stared at Yi Shuihan with a frown. Yi Shuihan didn't fall asleep while she was doing her monologue, right? A moment later, Yi Shuihan finally spoke. "That's what you wanted to tell me?" Yi Wanwan nodded vehemently and said, "That's right. Nairni, Lord Azura offended and slandered you so much? If I were you, I would definitely make him pay. Later this evening, Lord Azura is holding a conference. At that time, he'll definitely personally attend. Knight Erranty, if you're angry, I can take you to Lord Azura and demand an explanation. As long as Yi Shuehan was enraged and agreed, her objective would be achieved. I'm not angry, Yi Shuehan replied indifferently. I never said I was #1 in the world. If you like these superficial titles, you can take it. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. What a broad-minded person. She previously heard that Yi Shuehan only attacked ancient clans and ignored all the other powers. As long as you didn't insult Yi Shuehan in front of him, he absolutely wouldn't care. Knight Ernie, you won't think about it? Yi Wanwan couldn't accept it. I'm only interested in ancient clans. If you have news of an ancient clan's higher-up making trips outside, you can inform me, Yi Shuehan said. Yi Wanwan, even if she did obtain news of an ancient clan higher-up leaving their clan, she wouldn't dare to tell Yi Shuehan. What if Yi Shuehan killed that higher-up? Those ancient clans wouldn't seek Yi Shuehan out. They'd definitely hunt her down. Oh right. Yi Shuehan took off his eye mask and got up from the sofa suddenly, going to the fridge and taking out a bottle. He handed it to Yi Wanwan and said, "Try this strong liquor that I brewed. It tastes decent." Yi Wanwan accepted the bottle, her lips twitching. She was tricked once already, how could she get tricked a second time? Yi Wanwan had a deep understanding of the liquor brewed by Yi Shuehan by now. They were all basically saccharine water. Alright, I'll taste it thoroughly when I'm home. Yi Wanwan turned to leave. Hold on, Yi Shuehan called out. What is it, Knight Erranty? Yi Wanwan asked curiously. I have a little disciple named Nye Tangxiao. He's the little young master of the Nye family, one of the 4 great clans in the independent state, Yi Shuehan said as he took off his eye mask again. Yi Wanwan froze in her spot. Pons? Yi Shuehan's little disciple? What's going on? Yi Wanwan looked at Yi Shuehan silently, waiting for him to continue. My disciple has never seen his mother, but he sought me out some time ago and told me his mother came home. However, my disciple is fairly suspicious of his mother's identity and wanted me to help him look into it, Yi Shuehan explained slowly. Yi Wanwan had an inkling about this matter. After Tang Tang's mother returned, Tang Tang found it hard to accept initially. Yi Wanwan didn't expect Tang Tang to be Yi Shuehan's disciple and request Yi Shuehan to help him investigate his mother's identity though. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Chapter 1400. Then, what does Knight Erranty want me to do? Yi Wanwan asked, perplexed. This is related to the Nye family. I once swore that I wouldn't participate in any matters of factions that aren't related to the ancient clans in the independent state. Although you sell doors, you should have a lot more means and channels for information than me. I don't have many friends, so I'd like you to help me investigate for my disciple. Yi Shuehan looked at Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was at a loss for words. Her situation was a bit awkward. She was the one who looked after Tang Tang back in China, which led to Madame Nye and Tang Tang's mother to have a warped perception of her. If she investigated Tang Tang's mother at a time like this. If Yi Shuehan was speaking the truth though and Tang Tang's mother was truly a fake, she wouldn't have any resentment about doing this for Tang Tang. However, Tang Tang's mother wasn't a fake and was real. She'd probably cause Tang Tang and his mother's relationship to deteriorate further by rashly investigating it. Knight Erranty, how reliable is his intel? Yi Wanwan asked with a frown. I don't know. Yi Shuehan shook his head. Aside from the ancient clans, I'm unfamiliar with the rest of the factions in the independent state, which is why I wanted you to help my disciple look into it. Yi Wanwan contemplated it for a long while before finally nodding. I'll try my best. She was coincidentally going to see Tang Tang in the Nye residence in a few days, so she could look into it a little without any major problems. Thanks. Yi Shuehan nodded. Also, please keep my master-disciple relationship with Nye Tangxiao a secret, Miss Yi. Sure. Yi Wanwan agreed. It was almost evening when she left Yi Shuehan's residence. Yi Wanwan sighed. She originally came to see Yi Shuehan today to ask him to help her handle Lord Azura, But in the end, Shuehan didn't help her and she had to help him instead. This transaction was a pitiful loss. Soon, 2 cars parked by the roadside. 7 Star and Big Dipper were in one, and the Star Destroyer mercenary team was in the second one. Yi Wanwan strolled forward and entered the back seat of the car driven by 7 Star. Yi Wanwan had informed Big Dipper to pick her up to attend Lord Azura's conference when it was time. 7 Star, drive, Yi Wanwan ordered. The car started moving immediately. Sisfeng, how was it? Is piece of shit willing to help? Big Dipper asked Yi Wanwan. It would have been fine if Big Dipper stayed silent, but Yi Wanwan was enraged the second he said that. Yi Wanwan's face was icily stern as she surveyed Big Dipper. A while later she asked, "Did you have fun installing the door?" Big Dipper grew embarrassed, as though he already knew what Yi Wanwan wanted to say. "You demanded $100,000 to install a door? Are you a bandit?" Yi Wanwan stared at Big Dipper. Big Dipper shook his head vehemently. "Sis Fong, I'm a bandit. Isn't everyone in the Fearless Alliance a bandit?" Yi Wanwan was rendered speechless. "Sis Fong, look, since we can't beat piece of shit, we can win through intelligence. Piece of shit is a very reasonable person. I deceived him by saying the door was custom-made and limited edition, so it was worth $200,000, but I only asked for $100,000 from him. He was fairly grateful to me. So on a certain level, I've already used my intelligence to beat piece of shit." Yi Wanwan, no, you're just shameless. Chapter 14:01 Yi Wanwan wasn't in the mood to continue talking nonsense with Big Dipper. Thankfully, Shuehan was extravagantly rich and didn't care. About 3 hours later, 7 Star drove the car to an enormous manor. Azura's conference today was held inside this manor. The manor's front door was packed with people already, and countless luxurious cars were arriving and parking near the manor. Bosses all of the major factions and districts exited their cars and entered the manor. Aside from the leaders of the various major factions, there were many passers-by who rushed from all over the state to witness this feast that signified Azura's revival. In addition, there were some special media agencies in the independent state who were standing by and waiting for explosive news. "Sis Fong, we're here," 7 Star said to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan nodded slightly but wasn't in a hurry to leave the car. She sat in the back and assessed the situation outside the manor. Soon, as people noticed the car driven by 7 Star, their expressions became surprised. 7 Star from the Fearless Alliance. He's driving. The newcomer can't be the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bro Flattop, right? Bro Flattop Bai Fong? Are you joking? Hasn't Bai Fong disappeared for many years already? I wager it must be some senior manager from the Fearless Alliance. Hey idiot. The president of the Fearless Alliance has returned for a while already. You don't even know that? That's right, emissaries from Azura went to the Fearless Alliance 3 days ago to demand tributes but were kicked out by the president of the Fearless Alliance. A few special media agencies were pointing their cameras towards 7 Star's car already. The return of the Fearless Alliance's president was indeed explosive news. However, the return of the Fearless Alliance's president to the independent state was fairly low-key. This conference between major factions of the independent state was her first public appearance. The media agencies in the independent state were similar to China's, but there were some differences. The independent state's media agencies only focused on news about the major factions, which were also the concern of the independent state residents. If this was China, media agencies would have probably spent some time on entertainment news, but in the independent state, the major factions and groups comprised the entire entertainment industry, so in a sense, it was the same. Back when Azura was besieged by all the factions, the Fearless Alliance was the most ferocious and enthusiastic. Now that Lord Azura of Azura has returned, he won't easily spare the Fearless Alliance. Lord Azura summoned so many factions for a conference this time, yet the president of the Fearless Alliance dared to attend. Isn't she too gutsy? Although the Fearless Alliance is frightening, the current Fearless Alliance is greatly inferior to the Fearless Alliance at its peak before. Moreover, Even when the Fearless Alliance clashed with Azura at its peak, it was to no avail. The president of the Fearless Alliance is the same as back then. She's fearless of everything in the world. However, this time, she'll likely pay the price. I reckon Lord Azura won't spare the president of the Fearless Alliance this time. Perhaps the president will die at this conference today. As the crowd bustled with discussion, Big Dipper got out of the car and opened the left door. Yi Wanwan slowly exited the car wearing a black muslin outfit. Many spectators' eyes landed on Yi Wanwan. A handful of reporters from the special media agencies also swiftly encircled her. Chapter 1402. 1402. Yi Wanwan remained calm and elegant upon seeing that. President Bai, back then, you left the Fearless Alliance and broke off all contact. We'd like to know where President Bai went and why you abandoned the Fearless Alliance you created with your own hands. A reporter asked Yi Wanwan with a microphone in their hand. Yi Wanwan was unmoved and glanced at the reporter before aloofly saying, "No comment." She didn't expect the independent state to also have gossip agencies, but after her experience with all the chaotic and dark shredding in China's entertainment industry and media industry, this type of situation was child's play to Yi Wanwan. President Bai, then why did you return to the independent state and the Fearless Alliance? Your disappearance and return have become an unsolvable mystery. Could you explain it to us? No comment, Yi Wanwan answered indifferently. Yi Wanwan naturally understood the saying, "He that talks much errs much." A succinct, "no comment," was the best answer. President Bai, everyone knows that your Fearless Alliance was the most ferocious and attacked the most intensely when all the powers in the independent state besieged Azura back then. This time, did you come here to apologize to Lord Azura and offer a large amount in tributes? The reporter was tenacious and immediately switched the topic. Yi Wanwan's eyes shifted. She couldn't reply to other things, but she definitely could talk about this. Everything she said would be discovered by the Martial Arts Union, so wasn't this the best time for her to show her attitude? Yi Wanwan's lips turned up with a bone-chilling smirk as she looked at the reporter. I came merely to see how much of a failure Lord Azura's conference will be. That's all. My Fearless Alliance will never pay tributes to any faction or person. However, if Azura and Lord Azura are willing to pay tributes to me, perhaps I'll consider it. A commotion tore through the crowd at Yi Wanwan's words as they stared at Yi Wanwan in disbelief. Wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance too gutsy? How could she dare to say this kind of thing? Even if those were her true thoughts, she should keep it to herself. This was Lord Azura's territory, after all. Wasn't the president seeking death by coming to Lord Azura's territory and saying these kinds of things? Bai Feng, long time no see, but your guts have gotten bigger. Melodic laughter was heard nearby. A moment later, a pretty woman with a noble bearing slowly walked toward them. Several formidable experts followed behind the woman. Everyone was taken back when they saw this woman. The newcomer was from the Yen family. Who's this woman who dares to speak to the president of the Fearless Alliance like this? A spectator looked curious. She's from the Yen family, the pearl of the Yen patriarch. No wonder, so she's Yen Yun, the spectator nodded pensively. The Yen family from back then naturally couldn't compare to the Fearless Alliance at its peak, but things were different now. Following the disappearance of the president of the Fearless Alliance, the Fearless Alliance fractured into several camps and was embroiled in endless inner turmoil while the Yen family rapidly developed. The Yen family wasn't currently weaker than the Fearless Alliance anymore. As for this beloved daughter of the Yen patriarch, she was used to being haughty and domineering in the independent state and had an extremely egotistical personality. Her martial arts skills were also extraordinarily high and she was labeled a genius, one who only appeared in the Yen family every other century. Moreover, she was the Yen family's heiress. Chapter 1403. 1403, Yen Yun, you don't have the right to speak here. Seven Star walked to Yi Wanwan's side and coldly looked at Yen Yun. Yen Yun glanced at Seven Star and snorted. Seven Star, you're just President Fearless dog. I don't even care about President Fearless, so who do you think you are? The audience fervently discussed amongst themselves. Lord Azura had a decent relationship with the previous head of the Yen family. After the current head came into his position, he wanted to marry his precious daughter, Yen Yun, to Lord Azura, but before he could say anything, Lord Azura disappeared. In the past years, Yen Yun considered herself Lord Azura's wife and often mobilized a small portion of Azura's power to bulldoze the Yen family's obstacles while Lord Azura was missing. Otherwise, the Yen family wouldn't have developed so rapidly. Because of this, Yen Yun asserted her position as Lord Azura's wife to outsiders. First President Fearless offends Lord Azura and now she offends Yen Yun. I'm afraid she really won't leave this conference alive today. I heard several higher-ups of the Yen family also came today, including the patriarch of the Yen family. Patriarch Yen seems to want to declare the marriage of his precious daughter, Yen Yun, to Lord Azura. Yi Wanwan ignored Yen Yun. Before Yi Wanwan could do anything, an elderly man arrived next to Yen Yun. He first glanced at Yi Wanwan before saying to Yen Yun, "Yuna, how could you speak so rudely to President Bai? You have to know that from today onward, perhaps President Bai will kneel before you and present you with a tribute. You have to be more courteous to those people who are destined to end up underneath our feet." Big Dipper and Seven Stars' expressions both shifted. This elderly man was Patriarch Yen. All the reporters turned around and circled Patriarch Yen and his beloved daughter, Yen Yun, upon their arrival. "Elder Yen, I heard a member of the Yen family offended President Fearless at some club and was killed by President Fearless. Will the Yen family seek revenge?" Yen Yun snorted. "You'll see in a moment." Big Dipper stood in front of Yi Wanwan and spat at Patriarch Yen and Yen Yun. "What rubbish! We'll eventually destroy you." Yi Wanwan looked away from the Yen family and aloofly said, "Don't forget our objective today. Ignore the others." Big Dipper and Seven Star nodded. The objective of this trip was to show their attitude to the martial arts union. Yi Wanwan looked at the bosses who kept arriving at the manor and sighed involuntarily. Wasn't Lord Azura's influence too terrifying? Thankfully, Nameless Nya assigned the Star Destroyer team to her. There were only 3 people, but it shouldn't be a problem for them to protect her and flee if they ran into a dangerous situation. Yi Wanwan's courage puffed up again at that thought. When some leaders saw Yi Wanwan and discovered she was the president of the Fearless Alliance, they were surprised. Who could have expected President Fearless to attend Lord Azura's conference? A moment later, the 3-member Star Destroyer team exited their car and walked to Yi Wanwan's side. The child, Fusheng, silently stood in front of Yi Wanwan with a grave expression. Chapter 14:04 Meanwhile, the curly-haired man wore a mesmerizing smile and acted gentlemanly. If he didn't mention it, no one would have expected this stately man to be a member of the Star Destroyer mercenary team. Mercenaries like them were all mysterious and rarely entered the public eye in order to avoid enemies seeking revenge. Even if they came out, no one knew their identity. "Sisfeng, should we eliminate Lord Azura this time? If you require an assassination, the compensation." "Sisfeng, you understand my meaning, right?" the curly-haired man said to Yi Wanwan with a faint smile. Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes. She was already taking a huge risk by coming here. She would be done for if she assassinated Lord Azura too. "How could you possibly assassinate Lord Azura?" Big Dipper walked up, disdain apparent on his face. "We have him." The curly-haired man pointed at Fusheng. Fusheng was ranked 15 in Europe's assassin chart. Aside from his strength, Fusheng also had his deceptive appearance and figure. "No need," Yi Wanwan said. "Act according to my orders. Everything else is unnecessary." The curly-haired man didn't say anything else since Yi Wanwan said that. Moreover, how could Lord Azura be easy to assassinate? If something went wrong, their lives would end there. Plus, Yi Wanwan only gave them an IOU. "President Bai, since you're here, please enter." The Azura emissary who was kicked out of the Fearless Alliance by Yi Wanwan walked toward Yi Wanwan in a black suit. Yi Wanwan snorted but stayed silent and strolled into the manor. Inside the manor, there was all the champagne, wine, food, and snacks that anyone could possibly imagine. All sorts of boss-level characters walked around the manor. Yi Wanwan examined the manor's surroundings but didn't discover Trance. In the end, Yi Wanwan realized that Trance had received Azura's invitation but didn't come, using his actions to resist Azura. Without Trance as an ally, Yi Wanwan's situation was more awkward. Every faction who came today seemed to have an amicable relationship with Azura or agreed to pay a tribute. Yi Wanwan was the only odd one out. Soon, a group of men and women brazenly sized up Yi Wanwan. A girl snorted and said, "President Fearless, since you dared to attend Lord Azura's conference today, you probably don't plan to leave alive, right? Since it's like that, how about we kill you and curry some favor from Lord Azura? What do you think?" Huh? Big Dipper was baffled. He looked at the girl and broke out in loud laughter. Kill us? Are you sleepwalking? What? Do you think you'll leave here alive? The young men and women laughed loudly. Based on Yi Wanwan's assessment, these young men and women were all members of the Yen family. The Yen family probably wanted to strike a blow at her ahead of time by relying on their relationship with Lord Azura. Hold on. The mercenary in a Chinese tunic suit with gold-framed glasses next to Yi Wanwan walked toward the Yen group. "Scram to the side. It's none of your business," the leading woman sneered. Bloodthirsty emotions surfaced in the man's eyes instantly. Swish. In a flash, the glasses man attacked, a finger shooting forward. A second later, a pop was heard and glasses man's finger pierced the woman's left eye. Under everyone's incredulous gazes, the woman wailed in pain and blood rushed out of her eye. "You!" The members of the Yen family hastily carried the girl away. Glasses man was expressionless as he took a black handkerchief from his pocket and lightly wiped the blood off his finger. "Sis Feng, look, you'll need to increase our compensation. Our attacks come at a cost," the curly-haired man earnestly said as he walked up and took out his handy calculator, his slender fingers flying over the buttons on the calculator. Yi Wanwan was utterly dumbfounded. "I didn't tell them to attack. Are they tricking me? How do they still have the face to demand money from me?" Chapter 1405, Blinding One Eye, $500. If you want follow-up service and a broken leg, it'll cost $200. If you want someone killed, that'll be $1,000, Sis Feng, the curly-haired man mumbled to himself. Yi Wanwan, "Oh right, Sis Feng, how many people do you plan to kill today? We have a discount. Kill 10 and you get 1 free, kill 20 and you get 3 free. The curly-haired man looked at Yi Wanwan. "Are you truly that poor?" Yi Wanwan couldn't control her lips from twitching. The curly-haired man sighed lightly and shook his head. He quietly asked her, "Sis Feng, considering your friendship with Lord Nye, don't you know why we're so poor?" Yi Wanwan shook her head. "How would I know? In truth, it's like this. Back then, Lord Nye was full of youthful vigor and had several serious explosive clashes with Patriarch Nye and Madame Nye. After that, he swore he'd never use a penny from the Nye family. If he used even a penny from the Nye family, his whole family would die," the curly-haired man explained with a mysterious expression. Yi Wanwan didn't know whether to cry or laugh after hearing that. No wonder nameless Nye was so poor and considered money as important as his life despite being the eldest young master of the Nye family. It turned out he truly was poor. Yi Wanwan could understand that kind of situation though. During nameless Nye's argument with his parents when he was younger, he said some harsh things like never using the Nye family's money simply to retain his pride. Also, nameless Nye's oath was very problematic. If he used the Nye family's money, his whole family would die. This way, even if nameless Nye begged on his knees, Madame Nye and Patriarch Nye wouldn't give a single penny to nameless Nye. However, Yi Wanwan was still confused. Isn't nameless Nye a mercenary? Isn't being a mercenary very profitable? The curly-haired man wanted to cry. "Sis Feng, that's true. But the mercenary business is in a slump and Lord Nye swore to revitalize the mercenary industry and would accept reasonable missions free of charge. He accepts some living expenses for compensation at most." Everyone knew about this. Hence, although the mercenary industry did start blooming again because of Lord Nye has to suffer for the sake of his pride, so he only accepts a few thousand at most for missions. We can't help it, we have to obey the rules set by Lord Nye. Yi Wanwan. This was indeed something that nameless Nye would do. Currently, everyone was staring at Yi Wanwan and her group with furrowed brows, and some people looked surprised and incredulous. This was a conference organized by Lord Azura, but President Fearless allowed her subordinates to commit physical assault in this type of setting and act so viciously. Moreover, the other party was the Yen family. President Fearless, aren't your actions trampling on the Yen family and Lord Azura's faces? Patriarch Yen and several higher-ups from the Yen family stepped forward. You vicious bitch, how could you? Yen Yun stared at Yi Wanwan icily. Originally, our Yen family was generous and forgiving about the matter last time and wasn't going to make you pay for it. Yet we gave you an inch and you wanted a mile. Yi Wanwan's brows locked together. She invited public outrage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The curly-haired man lifted his right hand and used his finger to count the members of the Yen family. Then the curly-haired man pulled out his calculator and plugged in some numbers. He placed the calculator in front of Yi Wanwan and said with an ingratiating smile, Sis Feng, look, there's a total of 14 people in the Yen family. Based on the head count, it'll cost $1,000 to kill each person and $18,000 to kill 14 people. Chapter 1406. Yi Wanwan looked at the curly-haired man, bewildered. If each person is $1,000, isn't 14 people $14,000? And it's buy 10 get 1 free, so it should be $13,000, right? The curly-haired man became embarrassed. But I didn't calculate it wrong on purpose? All right, it's $13,000 then. Should we start killing, Sis Feng? The powerful figures of various factions all looked at Yi Wanwan and her group. President Fearless acts just like the rumors. Isn't she too arrogant? An elderly man grunted. President Fearless is called Bro Flat Top. If she wasn't arrogant and brassy, why would she be called Bro Flat Top? A powerful figure snorted. Today, I'd like to see whether the supposed Bro Flat Top will leave this manor alive. Regardless of what the Yen family does, Lord Azura definitely won't allow her to live. The previous patriarch of the Yen family was friends with Lord Azura, and they say Yen Yun will be married to Lord Azura. President Fearless will die without a doubt today for humiliating the Yen family like this. The Yen family watched how Yi Wanwan was trying to buy their lives in front of them. What was more detestable was that each of their lives was only worth $1,000, and it was fucking buy 10 get 1 free. Kill her! A higher-up from the Yen family shouted harshly. Come. If you don't kill me, I'm your father, and 7 Star is your grandfather. Big Dipper chortled and turned to 7 Star. Right, old 7? 7 Star glanced at Big Dipper and answered on this rare occasion. Yes. Yi Wanwan, Big Dipper. Before the Yen family could attack, Yen Yun coldly interjected, no need to get angry for now, everyone. The Yen family was taken back and looked confused. They didn't understand why Yen Yun didn't allow them to attack. This is my future husband, Lord Azura's home turf. Since President Fearless accepted the invitation, she's also a guest of Lord Azura. Since President Fearless was so arrogant and brassy and harmed members of the Yen family on Lord Azura's home turf, she should be rightfully punished by Lord Azura. We should respect Lord Azura. Otherwise, wouldn't this conference be a joke? Yen Yun explained aloofly. The members of the Yen family frowned pensively upon hearing that. After carefully thinking about it, they realized Yen Yun was right. It was Lord Azura who called this conference. No matter what President Fearless did, she was also a guest invited by Lord Azura. If conflict broke out between them and the Fearless Alliance here, it would look like they weren't giving face to Lord Azura and would negatively impact Yen Yun. After all, Yen Yun was publicly recognized as Lord Azura's wife. Alright, we'll listen to Yun'er and won't fight with this damn bitch for the time being. A higher-up from the Yen family nodded. The various powerful figures present all inwardly gave Yen Yun a thumbs up. The beloved daughter of the Yen family was truly considerate and sensible, prioritizing the big picture. President Fearless is doomed today. Ignoring her prior animosities with Lord Azura, he'd kill her without a doubt if only to seek retribution for his beloved woman, an elderly man said with a light chuckle. The people near him all voiced their agreement. Yi Wanwan was inwardly cursing the Star Destroyer mercenary team's ancestors. They were professionals at getting their employers into trouble. Chapter 1407. She originally only agreed to attend Lord Azura's conference to make her stance clear to the Martial Arts Union, who knew it would progress to this state. As expected, Nameless Nye's people were all freaking unreliable. Sis Feng, do we kill or not? The patriarch of the Yen family and his daughter, Yen Yun, are stronger, so we might have to charge extra. An extra 1,000 or so for each one. That should be fine, right? The curly-haired man asked Yi Wanwan urgently. This was a large sale, so he had to grasp this opportunity. Stop thinking about killing people. Prepare to escape later. Yi Wanwan felt utterly helpless. It'll cost something to escape too. At that time, if a fight really breaks out, the three of us will protect you and your two subordinates while we escape, but we'll be in danger, so this will cost more than killing someone. At least $20,000. Otherwise, it's out of the question, the curly-haired man jabbered on as his fingers furiously tapped his calculator. Yi Wanwan wanted to die. Did Nameless Nye really send them here to help her instead of getting her into trouble? Couldn't he have found some people more normal and reliable, leaving her an escape route at least? Everyone. A white-haired elderly man slowly walked out of the manor and swept his eyes across the guests. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Lord Azura's steward. Lord Azura will arrive momentarily. Please remain calm. Everyone nodded in response. Yi Wanwan started leisurely strolling around the manor when she heard about Lord Azura's imminent arrival. Instead of a stroll, she was actually trying to remember the escape routes. Otherwise, she, 7-star, Big Dipper would seriously be done for in this damn place today. Anyway, she'd made her stance clear, and the Martial Arts Union would definitely learn about the events today. After Lord Azura came out, she would throw a few insults at him, then beat it. Yi Wanwan came for nothing else but to express her loyalty to the Martial Arts Union and make her stance clear to the Martial Arts Union. According to Yi Wanwan's plan, she'd only make a small commotion, which should be too dangerous already, but with the Star Destroyer team's assistance, they would probably. In a corner of the manor, Yi Wanwan frowned as she planned an escape route in her head. Suddenly, a man in black walked toward her, and she didn't pay attention, so they ran into each other. Are you blind? The man in black loudly cursed. Yi Wanwan's expression chilled and she was about to say something. In the next second though, Glasses Man attacked in a flash and struck the man's chest. A loud bang was heard, and the man in black flew back several meters like a snipped kite. The man in black was knocked into the crowd with a hit. President Bai, aren't you too insolent? Could it be that you find us displeasing and want to compare notes with us, President Bai? Several powerful figures knocked into by the man in black all stood up and angrily glared at Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan clutched her forehead helplessly. How's this related to me? It wasn't me who hit them. It was that Glasses Man from the Star Destroyer mercenary team. Seek him out instead. Unfortunately, these three people came with her, so she couldn't cast away her relationship with them even if she wanted to. Chapter 1408, Sis Feng, he protected you just now. That hit costs $500. Remember it and don't forget it. The curly-haired man walked to Yi Wanwan's side and pressed a few numbers on the calculator before placing it in front of Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan surveyed the curly-haired man and wanted to say something but pursed her lips, staying silent. Are we sure the Star Destroyer mercenary team didn't come here to sabotage me? The person hit by Glasses Man was a member of Azura. All the powerful figures turned to Yi Wanwan. This woman was seriously arrogant to the max. Not only did she attack the Yen family, but she also dared to attack Lord Azura's people. It looks like President Fearless is truly suicidal. She attacked the Yen family earlier and she's starting to attack Lord Azura's people now. You can't stop some people when they want to die. Just treat it as a free show. I really look forward to how wretchedly President Fearless will die when Lord Azura comes. The glasses man in a Chinese tunic suit pushed up his glasses and looked at Yi Wanwan. Sis Feng, Lord Nya told us to protect you closely, so we'll attack anyone who threatens and disrespects you. With us here, Sis Feng doesn't need to act or have any worries. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched when she heard Glasses Man's words. I'm in more freaking danger with you guys here. Yi Wanwan's martial arts skills might be decent in China, but they were disgraceful amidst the experts in the independent state. Yi Wanwan couldn't beat a single expert or boss present. Perhaps they could even trample her with a single finger. If she was in the Fearless Alliance's territory and had a numerical advantage, she wouldn't need to be afraid, but where was she? She was in Azura's territory, not the Fearless Alliance's territory. If she truly incited public fury, she wouldn't even know how she died. Yi Wanwan's original plan only included aggravating Lord Azura, which would only be considered rude. It shouldn't be difficult for her to extract herself if it was a mere commotion she caused. However, the Star Destroyer mercenary team seriously offended everyone there. Sis Feng, many of the factions here are inferior to the Fearless Alliance, but their leaders dare to scorn you and even want you to die. I think their actions are a giant insult toward you, Sis Feng. Hence, I think we can kill them all and let them know President Fearless' dignity can't be challenged so easily. The curly-haired man spoke seriously and didn't wait for Yi Wanwan's reply before he started counting heads earnestly. The people who were pointed at by the curly-haired man all exploded with fury and wanted to charge at Yi Wanwan with everything they had. At that time, a group of austere and imposing men in black who were fully armed started heading toward them while guarding one person. The leading man had a cold and detached expression and ash-colored hair. His dark, unfathomable eyes were akin to an icy abyss and didn't contain a single trace of human emotion. Following this man's appearance, the manor's temperature plunged down to the freezing point. This is Lord Azura? Fear and dread surfaced in the powerful figure's eyes when they saw the man. Chapter 1409. Lord Azura had always been mysterious. Everyone knew his name in the independent state, but very few people knew his true appearance. The man looked like he was one with the knight in his black suit. After his appearance, the conflict provoked by the president of the Fearless Alliance mellowed, and everyone turned silent. Soon, the man walked to the dead center of the manor under everyone's fearful and reverent gaze. He stopped, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. Yen Yun was intently staring at him, her face brimming with excitement. This man was truly the esteemed and supreme Lord Azura. She'd once seen him many years ago. After all these years, he didn't seem to have changed too much except for his hair turning ashen. The man sat down on the raised seat in the front, assessing everyone as a superior. Everyone confirmed this man was the esteemed Lord Azura without a doubt as they watched him sitting down. Greetings, Lord Azura. Dozens of leaders rose and spoke while cupping their fists toward the man on his throne. The man was expressionless when he heard them and curtly nodded in response. Sis Feng, it's Lord Azura. Lord Azura's here, Big Dipper quietly reminded Yi Wanwan in excitement. Yi Wanwan was hiding behind the curly-haired man, Big Dipper, and the others, afraid that Lord Azura would notice her. Yi Wanwan covertly said to the curly-haired man, Curly, watch me for orders and prepare to flee at any moment. Sis Feng, don't worry. We're professionals. The curly-haired man nodded vehemently to comfort her. Yi Wanwan didn't wish to acknowledge this professional troublemaking group anymore and secretly glanced at Lord Azura on his throne. Before escaping, she had to look at the famous Lord Azura's true appearance. Rumors claimed Lord Azura was incredibly ugly. She wondered how ugly he was. Lord Azura was also currently surveying the Fearless Alliance. And so, when Yi Wanwan secretly peered up, her eyes clashed with his eyes unexpectedly. When the duo saw each other, they froze. Disbelief and shock surfaced in Lord Azura's eyes. Yi Wanwan was even more stunned. When she saw Lord Azura's face, she felt like she was struck by transcendent lightning. In contrast to how Yi Wanwan was shaken to her core, Lord Azura looked away after a brief second, as though he was unintentionally looking at her and didn't want to leave any clues behind. Sis Feng, what's wrong? Are you okay? Sis Feng, Big Dipper hurriedly asked with concern upon sensing something amiss in Yi Wanwan's expression. However, Yi Wanwan was intently staring at the man on the throne, completely unresponsive, as though she was afraid the man would disappear if she blinked. Ahem, Big Dipper couldn't help mumbling upon seeing that. Sis Feng, wake up. You didn't take a liking to Lord Azura's beauty, right? He didn't expect Lord Azura's looks to be so havoc-wreaking. Big Dipper called out several more times, and Yi Wanwan finally returned to her senses, disbelief still evident on her face. If she wasn't blind, the man sitting on the throne named Lord Azura was? Si Yihan. Chapter 14. Yi Wanwan's mind was an utter mess. According to Taoist devotee and nameless Nye, they looked for news of Si Yihan after returning to the independent state. Si Yihan should be a member of the Si clan. However, the man on the throne was clearly identical to Si Yihan aside from his head of ashen hair. Although Yi Wanwan wanted to go up immediately and ask him, she wasn't dumb. She couldn't expose herself in this kind of setting. There was also a point that Yi Wanwan didn't understand. The man on the throne clearly met her eyes, so if he was Si Yihan, why didn't he recognize her or react at all? I didn't expect the mysterious Lord Azura to break his mysteriousness today and expose himself in front of the world. It appears Azura will walk into the spotlight from behind the scenes. They probably have something major planned, the curly-haired man said. The man on the throne was imperceptibly surveying everyone and quickly looking away, as though he was unwilling to let Yi Wanwan discover his identity. Senior Fu. Si Yihan called the steward next to him. My lord, what instructions do you have? The elderly steward, Senior Fu, went up swiftly. Tell Lin Ke to refrain from appearing, Si Yihan ordered. Senior Fu looked slightly confused as to why Lord Azura laid down this order but nodded and left. Lin Ke was currently heading toward Si Yihan's direction with large strides. Before he could get any closer, he was pulled aside by Senior Fu. Senior Fu, what are you doing? Lin Ke asked, bewildered. Lord Azura's orders. He doesn't want you to appear, the elderly steward calmly conveyed. What? Lin Ke was baffled. Doesn't want me to appear? But Senior Fu said, these are my lord's wishes. What's he up to? Why isn't he allowing me to appear? The confused Lin Ke accidentally caught something in the corners of his eyes. He saw Yi Wanwan's profile in the crowd and immediately froze. Damn, Lin Ke looked like he saw a ghost and incredulously rubbed his eyes. If he wasn't blind, wasn't that woman Yi Wanwan? Lin Ke felt his head swelling up like a balloon. Isn't Yi Wanwan in China? How did she come to the independent state, and also appear in the conference summoned by Ninth Brother? Lin Ke finally understood why Ninth Brother told the steward to stop him from appearing. Ninth Brother probably didn't plan to admit his identity to Yi Wanwan. If he showed up, wouldn't he expose Ninth Brother completely? Lin Ke wiped his sweat and quickly dodged to the side, not daring to walk any closer. Afraid that Yi Wanwan would see him, he was forced to hide in the corner and secretly assess the venue. In the manner, Si Yihan was silent for a while before detachedly saying, I believe everyone is aware of this conference's objective. Yen Yun promptly took the initiative to walk towards Si Yihan and frantically nodded. We know. Our Yen family will cooperate with everything we have and offer our tributes on time every month as agreed upon. Si Yihan aloofly glanced at Yen Yun and didn't say anything. Yen Yun looked a little disappointed but continued to stare at the man in infatuation. Chapter 14:11. Yi Wanwan watched how Si Yihan flirted with Yen Yun, anger involuntarily rising in her heart. Shortly after, the various leaders stood up with ingratiating smiles. It's truly our honor to be able to see Lord Azura's true appearance today. Since we accepted Lord Azura's invitation for this conference, we'll, of course, obey the rules established by Lord Azura and hand over the correct tribute every month. A red-haired man standing next to Lord Azura sneered when he saw the various factions successively standing up and expressing their loyalty. Every single one of these factions declined to offer tributes after Lord Azura left, but every one of them acted like loyal dogs as soon as Lord Azura returned. What a joke! Lord Azura will naturally obey the rules of the game you established. However, some people are extremely arrogant and never plan to pay their tribute. An unknown leader looked at Yi Wanwan with a sarcastic smile. Before Yi Wanwan could speak, Big Dipper suddenly stood forward and acted haughtily. Don't joke with me. Our president already told you to keep daydreaming if you want us to pay tributes. But we'll consider it if your Azura wants to pay tributes to our fearless alliance every month. Although Si Yihan remained expressionless, the expression of the red-haired man behind Si Yihan chilled and darkened instantly. It was so dark that ink could drip from it. Back when Azura was besieged by the various major factions, the fearless alliance attacked the fiercest, cheered the loudest, cursed the harshest. Now, the president of the fearless alliance trampled on Azura's territory with barely any people and acted insolently. Did she want to leave as a corpse? Is that so? The red-haired man eerily said while staring at Big Dipper. Huh, is that so, your grandmother's ass? With your grandfather Big Dipper here, let's fight if you dare, son of a bitch. I'll show you grandfather Big Dipper's might. Big Dipper provoked while pointing at the red-haired man. Their goal in coming here was to instigate trouble and wreck Lord Azura's conference anyway, so Big Dipper let loose completely. Yi Wanwan sighed and face-bombed. Just what kind of sin did she commit? Instigating trouble wasn't the same as seeking death. This wasn't how you instigated trouble. She clearly told Big Dipper the plan before. You're dead. A murderous glint flashed through the red-haired man's eyes, and he strode toward Big Dipper and Yi Wanwan. However, at that moment, the man on the throne apathetically called out, Jiang Yen won. The red-haired man, Jiang Yen, turned around and looked at the man. Withdraw, Si Yihan ordered aloofly. Yes, Jiang Yen didn't question him at all and receded to the side at once. No one ever dared to doubt Lord Azura's words in Azura. Lord Azura, a higher-up from the Yen family, walked forward and looked at Si Yihan. Not to mention President Fearless' arrogance and insolence, but President Fearless dared to blind someone from our Yen family in front of everyone despite being on Lord Azura's home turf today. We hope Lord Azura can provide us with justice. Si Yihan reflexively glanced at Yi Wanwan but promptly looked away. Yi Wanwan's brows knitted together. That man had identical looks to Si Yihan but didn't acknowledge her after seeing her. What in the world is going on? Is he not Si Yihan? Or is he in some kind of unspeakable predicament, and it wouldn't be good for him to acknowledge me now? Chapter 1412, Sis Feng, that's good enough. Let's flee, Big Dipper said to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan surveyed her surroundings. Ever since Lord Azura's arrival, Azura's forces had sealed off the manor. It wouldn't be easy to escape. No worries, we're here. The curly-haired man revealed a mesmerizing smile. Big Dipper gave the curly-haired man a thumbs up. Reliable. Of course. We're very professional. The curly-haired man nodded with a smile. The higher-ups of the Yen family brought out the Yen woman whose left eye was blinded earlier. That woman's eyes were professionally treated and bandaged now, and she looked rather savage and sorry. Lord Azura, it's the work of that bitch, President Fearless. A higher-up from the Yen family coldly stated. President Fearless. Si Yihan looked toward Yi Wanwan, an inexplicable glint flickering in his eyes. Si Yihan didn't know why Yi Wanwan traveled to the independent state from China. Before he left China, he left behind several capable people to secretly protect Yi Wanwan. He naturally knew about the Si family's matters as well as the Yi family's matters, but he didn't worry since it shouldn't be too difficult for Yi Wanwan to resolve these matters with her capabilities. Moreover, Si Yihan left Yi Wanwan behind in China not only to protect her but also out of a desire to make her rapidly grow on her own. Even gods had moments of miscalculation and error, let alone humans. Yi Wanwan couldn't keep growing under the protection of his wings. Otherwise, as soon as he erred, Yi Wanwan would be akin to fragile glass. Her fate would be evident, glass would shatter but iron wouldn't. It was only by increasing her own power that she could ensure her own safety. Si Yihan looked away. He hadn't received any news that Yi Wanwan came to the independent state. Also, based on her appearance, she didn't look like she recovered her previous memories. Lord Azura, you must give justice to our Yen family. The higher-up of the Yen family looked at Si Yihan before turning to Yi Wanwan with a sneer. Are you telling me what to do? Si Yihan's frosty gaze turned to the higher-up from the Yen family. The Yen higher-up was briefly startled before hastily denying, and it's not like that. Si Yihan turned to Senior Fu and said, the events? The elderly steward nodded and quietly explained the whole story to Si Yihan. Si Yihan said coldly, President Bai is an honored guest invited by me, but the members of the Yen family caused trouble without cause. The red-haired man strode toward the woman without any hesitation, and the woman's neck was snapped in half by the red-haired man before anyone from the Yen family could react. Everyone found this scene utterly incredulous, especially Patriarch Yen, Yen Yun, and their group. Awesome. No wonder Azura's supreme, Big Dipper mused. Lord Azura is establishing his might and telling everyone that anyone who causes trouble in his territory will die regardless of who they are. I reckon we're next. Yi Wanwan frowned. She felt something was off still. That man had to be Si Yihan. She lived 2 lives. There was no way she couldn't recognize her bedmate. President Fearless. Si Yihan suddenly turned to Yi Wanwan and apathetically called out. Yi Wanwan turned to the man with a severe glint in her eyes and frankly said, Lord Azura, our fearless alliance won't pay tributes. Like I said before, perhaps I might consider it if your Azura pays tributes to my fearless alliance every month instead. Why aren't you paying? Si Yihan asked. Why? Not paying was not paying, why would there be a why? My fearless alliance's financial state has been declining recently. I don't have any profits myself, yet you want me to give you a tribute? Yi Wanwan sneered and found a random excuse. Today, she wanted to test whether this man was Si Yihan or not. If he wasn't Si Yihan, Lord Azura wouldn't allow this kind of attitude. Chapter 1413 Yi Wanwan never intended to pay the tribute ever since she accepted Lord Azura's invitation. Especially after seeing Lord Azura's looks which were identical to Si Yihan's, an insuppressible rage swelled up inside her heart. He clearly had Si Yihan's face but looked at her like a stranger and didn't have any holes. It was as though he didn't know her. Why does Azura deserve to obtain any tributes from my fearless alliance? Yi Wanwan snorted while staring at Lord Azura. A cold glint flashed through Jiang Yan's eyes, but Lord Azura didn't say anything, so he didn't dare to do anything. All the leaders looked at Yi Wanwan with sneers. This president of the Fearless Alliance dared to speak so insolently despite being in Lord Azura's territory. She was probably desperate to go and reincarnate. The Yen family was also inwardly sneering. Lord Azura didn't take action against her yet, but the president was seeking death of her own accord. Continue, Si Yihan said lightly while looking at Yi Wanwan, not looking angered. Back then, our Fearless Alliance fought openly with Azura already, and you were defeated by our Fearless Alliance. Yet, a loser like you deliriously wishes to gain profits from the Fearless Alliance? Who gave Azura the courage? Yi Wanwan disdainfully said. Everyone looked at each other wordlessly. The president of the Fearless Alliance truly knew how to gild her face. Many years ago, many forces in the independent state teamed up together to attack Azura, not the Fearless Alliance alone. Moreover, Azura wasn't defeated miserably. Yet, through President Fearless' mouth, it sounded like the Fearless Alliance singly challenged Azura and defeated Azura. She was clearly trying to anger Lord Azura on purpose, right? Lord Azura? Since President Fearless dares to be so presumptuous and is shooting her mouth off today, if we allow her to leave today, we'd be returning a tiger to her den. We can't spare her. Yen Yun stepped forward and hastily said while looking at Si Yihan. Si Yihan's bone-chilling gaze languidly landed on Yen Yun and said aloofly, Do you have the right to speak here? Yen Yun was startled. Her face was incredulous. Didn't father tell her that Lord Azura would marry her? Moreover, she'd been flaunting herself as Lord Azura's wife while he was gone and could mobilize a portion of Azura's forces. Patriarch Yen walked forward at once and chuckled. Lord Azura, did you forget? This is my daughter, Yen Yun. Siyin glanced at Patriarch Yen. What does your daughter have to do with me? A commotion erupted in the venue. Hadn't the Yen family claimed they were in-laws with Azura all along? But Lord Azura, back then, didn't my father, the previous patriarch, tell you to marry Yen Yun? Soon after you left. Now that you've returned, this marriage, Patriarch Yen said. Siyin waved his hand and interrupted him coldly. You're saying it was your father who discussed it with me? Yes, Patriarch Yen nodded. Then tell your father to come and talk to me, Siyin replied. Ah, Patriarch Yen and everyone from the Yen family instantly froze. The previous patriarch passed away many years ago. How could he reappear to converse with Lord Azura? Chapter 1414. 1414, Jiang Yen. Siyin turned to the red-haired man. The red-haired man walked towards Siyin. I heard that part of Azura's forces were ordered by the Yen family while I was gone these past years. Is that true? Siyin's voice was cold like a millennium-old glacier, sending people's hearts shuddering. Yes, Yen Yun of the Yen family claimed to be your wife, and the Yen family continued to assert that their previous patriarch discussed marriage with you. Some of Azura's members believed it and were controlled and ordered by Yen Yun, the red-haired man answered honestly. Siyin said indifferently. Severely punish those people. I understand. The red-haired man nodded. Patriarch Yen, Yen Yun, and their group were all rooted to their spots. This wasn't what they expected at all. Siyin didn't look at the Yen family at all and turned to Yi Wanwan again. He was about to speak when a leader stood up and said while cupping his fists, Lord Azura, President Fearless is insolent in her speech and disrespected you. She should be punished by death. However, Siyin was nonchalant and coldly said, victories and failures are common in military affairs. I did lose tragically back then. President Fearless merely spoke the truth. The leaders were incredulous. Wasn't this going too far in telling a barefaced lie? When did Azura lose? Even if they were defeated under the attack of many factions. They didn't lose to the Fearless Alliance alone. Yi Wanwan pensively surveyed the man on the throne, both angry and annoyed. If he wasn't Siyin, why would he be so lenient? If he was Siyin, why didn't he acknowledge her? Even if he didn't acknowledge her on the spot, he could definitely give her a hint with his intelligence. Even a look would be good. He shouldn't treat her like a stranger and not react at all. Unless he was purposefully pretending to not know her. President Fearless. Siyin suddenly turned to Yi Wanwan. Speak. Yi Wanwan's voice was a bit cold. Since you came today, your tribute can't lack a single cent every month, Siyin said. You'll only make my Fearless Alliance pay tributes to your Azura if I die, Yi Wanwan snapped brusquely. 7-Star and Big Dipper were surprised. Wasn't this too much? They could escape after causing enough trouble. If they continued like this, it wouldn't be fun. However, Yi Wanwan didn't care about that. She stared at Siyin and coolly said, What? My Fearless Alliance has always been like this. We've never been afraid of anyone. Even if the Heavenly Emperor came, we'd act the same to him, let alone you. Siyin was silent for a moment before saying, Give me a reason for Fearless Alliance not paying tributes. Yi Wanwan blurted, I told you already. The Fearless Alliance is very poor. We don't have any money. Several leaders chortled when they heard that. One of them pointed at Yi Wanwan and said, Utter nonsense. Your Fearless Alliance is the most lawless force in the entire independent state. Theft, robbery, murder, arson, plunder. There's nothing that the Fearless Alliance won't do. If your Fearless Alliance is poor, there's probably no one who's rich in the independent state. Bullshit. Big Dipper pointed at that person and cursed. Don't spout nonsense if you don't know jack shit about my Fearless Alliance. My Fearless Alliance does everything, but we've never committed theft. The Fearless Alliance is rather good at murder, arson, and plundering though. Yuan was exasperated and wished nothing more than to slap Big Dipper to death. Why is his chest so puffed up? What's there to be proud of? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.